Our daughter's been missing for 8 years. What was she doing? In a 3,000-year-old sarcophagus.
Haiti was never supposed to be found. She was meant to stay buried.
I want to know all the things about you. Like what? Like how your little piggies taste.
What happened to Katie?
Dad?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me as always, it's Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, deadite mummies. I'm doing all right. Literally just walked in the door after watching this movie, and I've got lots to say. So, how the hell you doing, Mike? I'm doing all right.
I'm doing good. I mean, I had a relatively uneventful weekend, nothing too crazy, and weather is doing its bipolar thing here where it's like it felt like we were getting early summer. Now we're supposed to be getting thunderstorms like overnight and tomorrow, so who knows. That's, I guess, a typical spring here. But other than that, ready to talk about this movie called The Mummy. So how's it going, Dawn? Also with us, what's up?
Yeah, not much. Always happy to be here.
All right. Well, it should be no surprise since we said it at the end of the last episode, and I think it was like the one major horror release this week. So, yes, it's Lee Cronin's The Mummy. I don't know what the importance of
That
the name, but
they've mentioned this numerous times that they wanted that to avoid the branding for the 99 version. This was specifically to avoid any comparisons to that. That was done very, very, very early on in this the planning stages. It was to avoid any kind of confusion about the Dark Universe, about whether or not this was going to be a reboot of the 99 version, whether this was going to be a sequel to the 32 version. This was always going to be planned for to have his name over the credits, so that way there would be no comparisons, that it would be a reboot of that and it'd be his own idea.
okay. Well, there we go. We have our explanation. So, let's see what IMDb has to say. The young daughter of a journalist disappears in the desert without a trace. 8 years later, the broken family is shocked when she is returned to them, as what should be a joyful reunion turns into a living nightmare. Oh no. Okay, so that is our setup. And now for our general thoughts, we'll start with Venom. Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Did it get you all wrapped up with joy or something else? What did you think, Venom?
All right. Well, I'm proud to say that for the second week in a row, I get to be the voice of dissension against the general horror audience. Obviously, last week we did Thrash, which was getting a lot of bad reviews, and I loved it. And here we are a week later, and once again, Lee Cronin's Mummy is getting a lot of bad reviews, and I fucking loved this movie. Now, granted, this movie is a possession movie masquerading as a mummy movie, and I know that that probably turned off a lot of people. I myself love possession movies, movies about, ancient demons and things like that. Almost always work for me. And once again, this one worked for me. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This movie is 2 hours and 14 minutes, and I know that rubbed a lot of viewers the wrong way. But I am here to say that for my money, I was not bored not 1 minute of this film. I was thoroughly invested. I mean, we get a horror set piece right in the cold open that kind of sets the tone, gives you a nice kill, a nice juicy gory kill right to start, and it just leads you right into it. There's not a lot of waiting. And I gotta say, I do one thing that I do agree with the critics about is that Lee Cronin is pretty good at setting up the humans in his story. Obviously, with his last film, Evil Dead Rise, we actually cared about that family. And once again, now with The Mummy, I actually cared about this family. I thought he did a really good job of, getting me to care. Nobody in this family is a caricature. None of them are insipid. Some people might have arguments about the very religious grandma, but ultimately, I am Spanish, and I have about 50 of those women in my family, so I know that it's very realistic, very organic. And I mean, she actually reminded me of one or two aunts in my family. So yeah, I absolutely love this family. I didn't want to see harm come to any of them. And obviously, we're watching a horror movie, so of course, harm will eventually come to some, if not all of them. Now, this movie kind of ratchets up. I don't want to say the gore, but I would say the grossness of it. I mean, there is a toenail scene in here that got the entire theater up out of their seat. The way that they shot that scene, you knew something was going to happen, but what ends up happening is not anything that you expect, and it totally shocked everyone in my theater. Granted, there wasn't a whole lot of people in the theater on a Monday afternoon, but still, everybody, audibly gasped when that scene happened, and I was there for it. I thought the movie had a very satisfying ending. The person who actually kind of started this whole ball rolling ends up, getting their comeuppance at the end, which is obviously always a good thing. Maybe not in the way that they're going to, but I thought it was very satisfying. Like I said, ultimately, I walked away from this movie really enjoying it. I kind of compare this movie not so much to some of the higher, like, acclaimed Universal monster remakes, or at least classic monster remakes like Nosferatu, and obviously the Oscar-winning Frankenstein from last year. But I look at this a lot like Lee Winnell's The Wolfman from last year. Again, a movie that kind of got panned by fans and critics that actually made my top 10 for last year, because I just saw so much originality in it, and it just worked for me. It may not have been a thrill ride, or a mile a minute action by any stretch, but the core story worked for me. And same thing with Lee Cronin's The Mummy. This core story worked for me. Now, I'm not going to say it's perfect. I am going to say, though, that I was disappointed with the mummy aspect of this, which I'm going to keep under my hat for now, because it might be a little minor bit of a spoiler. But yeah, the actual mummy aspect of this kind of bothered me. But the fact that the majority of this movie felt a lot like an Evil Dead film, again, I was on board for. Even Grandma herself, the aforementioned grandma character, flat out turns into a Deadite in this movie. Like, there's no two ways about it. Even her dialogue is straight Deadite. So again, maybe Lee Cronin has, a certain style that he falls into, and all of his movies are going to kind of feel very similar. I mean, we'll see with the next couple of films that that director puts out, but the fact that this reminded me a lot of Evil Dead Rise absolutely worked for me. I mean, for me, this felt like The Exorcist meets Evil Dead Rise. And those are, one of them is my favorite movie of all time, and the other one was one of my favorite movies of a few years ago. So I'm obviously on board for it. I know the pacing might be an issue for some people, clocking it at 2 hours and 14 minutes. A lot of people are going to say that it's too long. There's no need for a mummy movie to be this long. And I'm not necessarily going to argue with those people, but I am just going to say that for me personally, I was not bored once. I was totally enthralled with this story, this family, the acting, even the kid actors. I thought all did great. Specifically, Katie, our actual, possessed, if you will, character in the movie. I thought her possessed look was great. I absolutely loved the way that she looked as, possessed Katie. It all worked for me for the most part. It much like Lee Winnell's Wolfman, this movie is not a mile a minute. It's not a giant thrill ride with lots of set pieces. And I know that's probably going to disappoint a lot of people. I know this movie was panned during its screeners because a lot of people, like Don mentioned, a lot of people, even with Lee Cronin's name on this title, a lot of people were still expecting ties to the Brendan Fraser Mummy films. And because of that, a lot of people were disappointed about it. Well, my friends, this is nothing like those movies. This is not an action adventure by any stretch of the imagination. This is solidly a slow-paced horror film. If you want to go psychological, I'm fine with it, even though there's nothing, I don't think there's much psychological about it. I mean, it's all very physical, it's visceral. There's no unreliable narrator situation. So for whatever it's worth, I'm probably going to be a man on a lonely island with this one, but I walked away absolutely loving The Mummy. It is solidly in my top 5 right now for the year. I couldn't tell you exactly where it lands because I'm still kind of high from Thrash last week and how much I ended up enjoying that film. And now for the second week in a row, I get to put up 2 middle fingers to the internet and say, ha, I don't care what you say. I absolutely love this movie, and I'm going to leave my general thoughts at that and turn it back over to Mike.
Okay, let's go over to Don and get your general thoughts on Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this a little bit more than I wanted to, or at least I thought I wanted to enjoy this one. I will admit that my main flaws with this one are solely placed on how long this thing is and why this has no business being as lengthy and as overly spaced out as it is. Give me 145, give me 150, cut some of the extraneous, repetitious, interactions with the family. I'm on board calling this a top 5 of the year. What it wants, or I should say, when it delivers, it's pretty much exactly what I kind of like in these kinds of movies. I love the interplay with the family. It gets a little overboard, but for the most part, I really enjoy what they're about. A lot of the various interactions with the mummy, again, that may be a little bit borderline to call it a mummy, but when it works, they're fantastic. I love the gore effects. I love the gruesome body horror imagery that it kind of brings about. A lot of the various possession scenes are really well handled. The maniacal Evil Dead energy is handled pretty nicely. Really has a lot to like in that regard, and I do enjoy a lot of the set pieces here. Like I said, it really drags on and it really feels its weight at times, and especially when it gets to the middle section where it's not necessarily beating a dead horse, but it just really feels repetitive with a lot of the various family coming around trying to get everybody on board. It does kind of, repeat itself a lot, trying to, hammer home just how obvious that the whole thing is, and that, that kind of just enhances the running time a little bit. But a lot of what I really like in these kinds of films is handled really nicely. And we get a lot of really fun set pieces. We get a lot of really fun interactions, and the gore is handled nicely enough, and I really like that. And like that's the part of the stuff that I really like and I really want. So yeah, I'm not going to say it's top 10 of the year. Like I said, I just have too many pacing issues with it. I know Venom didn't mind it, but I did. And I definitely felt the 215 that it runs. Like I said, 145, 150. I'm calling this top five of the year. As it stands, this may be an outside top 10. We'll see where it lands. Maybe it'll be a really high, back half of the list, maybe like a six or a five or somewhere in there, depending on where the rest of the year lands. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm not going to go as high on it as Venom is just because I do have some of those issues. But yeah, other than that, I don't have much else to really add because yeah, the big thing is, how closely this is a mummy film. And I don't really want to get into it now just because it is such a spoiler, but yeah, like I said, other than that, I don't have much else to add. So I guess we'll just say back to you, Mike.
Okay, well, if you want your balance, here it comes. I thought this movie sucked, and I thought it was boring, and I am perplexed. Like to me, this was just a patchwork, generic version of many other Blumhouse movies. It didn't give me Evil Dead, it gave me Exorcist Believer, which is
Oh,
worse. Terrible. Um, and I mean, if you want to say Evil Dead, I would say maybe like the more modern Evil Deads, and I don't really like those too. I mean, they're not terrible movies, but they're just kind of like mid movies to me. So that didn't do anything to make me like the movie anymore. It was way too long. I thought it was meandering in the second act. I thought that, I mean, we're definitely going to get into the mummy aspects of it in spoilers. I think there's a big issue there because of what it all really amounts to. Um, I just don't understand what they're really going for in this movie to even like call it what it is, if that's like a preview of when we get into spoilers. People are comparing it to like the werewolf remake. What was it? Winnell's, was
yep.
it? To me, the main difference, where I can give that one credit that I don't give charity the same charity to this one is what at least that one there was a actually, you know what? I can't even because then that's really gonna give away. I'll wait till we get to spoilers for that too. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like this they just made a movie that features every aspect of every other Blumhouse movie and then slapped the name The Mummy on it. And I don't know. I was just sitting there every beat of the movie. I was like, uh-huh, yep, okay. Like I see this in every movie you guys make, Blumhouse. It's the same thing, and it's just getting old and tired to me. And the fact that they made it 2 hours, I'm like, that hurts it even more. And then, like, in a movie that's 2 hours, like when we get to our finale, it's just wrapped up so neat and like easy. Like, oh, this whole thing we went through all these trials and tribulations for. Well, now we're gonna replicate it, I guess. And it's just so easy now. And I don't know. I thought this movie was a mess. Like, it's egregious for it even being this long. And I don't know. I just I was just sitting there the whole time like this I would say like the opening 10-15 minutes when we're first kind of like getting the build up to what's happening is okay. Like okay, we're setting up something with a character. And then once we get more from the character, I'm just like, well, where is this going? What does this have to do with what this movie I thought is supposed to be about? And it's just a generic possession movie. It's not even like there's nothing new, there's nothing interesting. It's just everything we've already seen. So I I don't get it, but like everything you guys listed that you guys like, I get why if you like that stuff, then I get why you really like this movie. So like I understand there's an audience for it. So I get that. I am just not the audience for this kind of movie, and I don't even know how much more I can go into without spoiling it. But it's like all the stuff you guys listed as why you like it. That's why I disliked it. So I really don't need to repeat every point, and I can just wait till we get into spoilers. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. So for the second week in a row, Mike shits on me and Don's parade. So that's good. And but hey, to each his own, man. Everybody's opinion is valid. But I'm sitting in the theater the complete opposite of Mike. I'm like, why do people hate this movie? I mean, we've got great acting, great actors, a family that we care about. We got gore, we got some cringy body horror. I'm not going to argue with his points about it being a fairly generic possession movie
Oh yeah,
because yes,
Venom.
uh,
That's what
what's that?
I. That's the one thing I meant to actually list as a positive. The body horror stuff, good. The one of you guys referenced already the nail clipping scene or whatever.
Uh-huh.
That was legitimate, like outstanding, right? Like I full credit to that. I just can't like change my opinion on the overall movie because of like a couple good like gross out scenes. But
And that's fine.
yeah.
Like I said, all opinions are valid. I can't agree, but like I said, and this is a guttural reaction for me because I saw the movie today at 1 p.m. It is now 5 as we record, and I drove the whole way home with a smile on my face. I was satisfied. It gave me that kind of petty, vindictive ending that makes me incredibly happy. No post credit scene, so I got to rush to the bathroom because yeah, after drinking a large soda, 2 hours and 15 minutes plus trailers, it adds up. So especially for my old ass. So yeah, but like I said, the possession aspects of this movie, I'll agree with Mike. They're very been there, done that. There's nothing all that original about it. But as I've said countless times before, if a movie does something that we've seen before, but they do it in a way that at least I'm still entertained, like I'm not rolling my eyes or cringing at the movie constantly, I'm down for it. I enjoyed this basic story. I enjoyed the small elements of police procedural that we get, and I mean incredibly small, literally one or two scenes at most. But I even like the character of the police, the Egyptian police officer that we see multiple times throughout the film, the one that ends up actually helping the family deal with this issue. Like for me, everything was solid. Nothing was exceptional necessarily, though. Like I said, the body horror, some of the kills. I mean, there are some juicy ass kills in this movie. I don't want to get into any of them specifically because there's not really a whole lot of them, but the ones that we get, I thought were pretty effective. There's a scene with a bunch of coyotes that absolutely worked for me. There's a skin peeling scene that absolutely worked for me. And like I said, the whole elements of like that we saw from Evil Dead Rise of the family slowly getting possessed member by member, we get that same thing here, which could be construed. That's why when Mike says he doesn't see Evil Dead in this, I'm kind of surprised because it's almost the same formula as Evil Dead Rise. Which is, obviously when me and Don reference Evil Dead, we weren't talking about, the 1981 original or whatever year it was. We're referencing Evil Dead Rise because it's the same director. And I'm just pointing out that Lee Cronin seems to have a style and he's sticking to it, at least until he puts out a flop, which who knows, this one might not do well, theatrically, as far as, making money. And that could, potentially get studios to either trust Lee less or maybe get him to change his style a little bit. Who knows? Only the
I,
future will tell. But,
I don't know what the budget. I don't know what the budget was, but I thought I read it made like 34 million, which doesn't seem bad, but it's gonna be. I don't know what the budget was, so that'll probably determine.
right. I mean, ultimately, 34 million for a opening weekend on a horror film isn't bad. I would say. I can't seem to find the budget information either. Yeah, I see the 34 million that you're talking about, but I can't seem to find a budget for it. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, if the movie had a high budget, it's probably obviously it's going to be effects and potentially shooting locations, because it did seem like they actually shot some scenes in Egypt. Obviously, it could have been Tunisia or some other country, or even sets here in the States. I don't know. But, for whatever it's worth, I have very little to complain about this movie. Obviously, I'll have the major complaint that everybody's going to have, and that's, the mummy aspect of it, which we'll get into in our spoiler conversation. But for whatever it's worth, I walked away enjoying this. And mind you, I saw this after all these negative reviews were coming out. Just like last week with Thrash, I watched it after all the negative reviews were coming out. And I still just didn't see it. I don't see the negativity in this movie. Yes, it is long. Yes, it is slow. But again, we all know this. Anybody who's a regular listener of the show knows I love my slow burns, especially when the payoff is worth it. And in my opinion, I thought we got a good payoff. I thought that the plot that Dad and the Egyptian cop came up with to kind of save their daughter worked for me. And then, the very final scene, the very petty, vindictive scene that we get, again, works for me. So, to each his own. Unfortunately, I feel bad for Mike that he didn't enjoy this, because I thoroughly loved it. I mean, when I say it's top 5, I might be actually buffering that a little bit, because this could be potentially top 3, honestly. Granted, this year hasn't been, necessarily a year to write home about, but for whatever it's worth, this absolutely worked for me. And I guess if there's nothing else to say, we can get into a quick spoiler conversation. So, gentlemen, anything you want to add? Spoiler free?
I can't think of much.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Obviously, if you've seen the trailer, you know the basic story of this movie. Little girl goes missing. 8 years later, she's found mummified inside of a 3,000-year-old sarcophagus. And she's very obviously not herself after she's pulled out of the sarcophagus, and the movie kind of goes on from there. So what we find out in the movie is that the mummy, quote unquote, is... See, that's the thing, is that this is the element of the mummy title that's probably going to not work for a lot of people. The mummy isn't necessarily the villain of this movie. The villain of this movie is oh God, I hope I remember the name. Nazmaranian, I believe was the name of it. And Nazmaranian is basically an ancient Egyptian parasitic god known as the destroyer of families. So, of course, everything that happens in this movie makes sense. And as soon as that professor gives that information to the dad, that this demon is known as the destroyer of families, then I obviously, it kind of lets you know where this movie is going from there and what possessed Katie is, basically capable of. So, of course, just like with Evil Dead Rise, Katie kind of spreads her possession to other people, so that eventually her little sister is possessed to the point that she rips out her own teeth, then grabs grandma's fake teeth and puts them in her mouth. And when she smiles, it's fucking nightmarish. To see a little kid with grown-up teeth in their mouth, holy shit. I thought that image was awesome. Almost reminded me of Karen Black at the end of Trilogy of Terror with her, very sharp teeth. Obviously not quite that terrifying, but it still kind of worked for me. And so, like I said, so the title, The Mummy, references the vessel, not the villain. So it's referencing Katie.
The spirit, the demon spirit of the mummy.
No. See, that's where you're mistaken. The Nazmaranian is not the mummy. The mummy is Katie. She is the vessel. If you guys remember, it's revealed in the movie that Nazmarian, he has to be kept in a human vessel, and that vessel needs to be mummified and kept in a certain sarcophagus to basically keep the demon at bay. So this whole movie is basically an attempt to keep this demon at bay. But obviously, because the family that's in possession of this sarcophagus ends up, making a terrible decision and trying to travel with the sarcophagus, which of course causes a plane crash. And then it kind of leads the story from there. Obviously the police are going to open the sarcophagus and blah, blah, blah. We go from there. So I think people need to get it out of your head that the villain is the mummy. Katie is the mummy. She is the vessel. It's probably not going to change anybody's opinion on it. I'm just kind of pointing that out. Part of the reason, and it's funny that Mike brings up Exorcist Believer, because my issue, a big part of my issue with that movie was also the title, because it was called The Exorcist, and there's no fucking exorcist in it. Or should I say, the only exorcist that's in it is in it for 2 minutes and leaves scared, and we never see that person again. So the movie's not about the fucking exorcist, it's about the possessed. That's why I had a major issue with that title. I have a lot less of an issue with this title, because yes, there is a mummy in this movie. It's just not, a monster wrapped in, threads that walks around killing people. It is the vessel that is holding this demon at bay. So obviously, when Katie is released, all the shit hits the fan, and that's when we start getting all this great gore. Excuse me, sorry, folks. I'm still recovering from a flu, so excuse me. Right when we get a great kill right at the plane crash, right during the cold open too, where we actually see the family that's been charged with keeping this demon at bay kind of realize that it's time to now change the vessels, because these vessels have a time limit. They can only contain the demon for a short amount of time. They don't really explain why. They just tell us that young, innocent people will hold the demon longer, like their body lasts longer or whatever. So blah, blah, blah. Anyway, eventually, yes, possessed Katie does kill her grandmother in a almost funny scene where she actually says, and this line is in the trailer, so I'm sure most of you have seen it, where she says, "Don't worry, grandma, it's fun being dead." And literally she just blows towards her grandmother and it shoots her out the fucking window, out like a 3-story window, lands on dad's car while dad and the other 2 kids in the family are in it. At this point, the younger sister is already possessed, and she actually starts laughing when she sees grandma's body. Very reminiscent of like When Evil Lurks, when the little girl is possessed and she laughs when her mother gets killed by the car. Kind of similar to that. Any movie that reminds me of When Evil Lurks is going to be
much better movie.
Oh, Jesus. For fuck's sake. Didn't your mother say if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything? Jesus.
The rules are not for a podcast.
Ay, Dios mío. Anyway. Man, I'm just wondering, what the hell did Mike expect that he wasn't satisfied with this movie? Like, first of all, I disagree that this is a basic Blumhouse movie. Like, yes, there are tropes in here.
As hell.
So you're saying that this is the same as Tarot, the same as I don't know, The Bye Bye Man. I just don't see how.
Obviously, it's not the same as like every single Blumhouse movie, but it just feels like the same. Like the possessed people move and talk and act the same way as like every modern possession. It's just like the same, watching the same thing, and they just try to wrap kind of a little bit of a different story around it, calling it The Mummy, which we've already kind of gone over, like their kind of like loose way of making it a mummy movie. But it's like, just once we get to all the possessed stuff, it's just like it's the same shit I've seen the past 3-4 years with every single modern. It's like, oh, the creepy kid says the creepy line. Okay, I've seen every creepy kid in the last 5 years say similar things that are supposed to be totally shocking and scary. And at this point, I'm just like kind of bored with it. It's not that like every single thing in this movie was bad. Like I said, like the gore, the gore was actually exceeded any expectations I had. I'll give it that credit for that. I didn't expect any type of like visceral gore in this, and even that cold opening when was it like the
hook,
claw
the hook
chain
kill
thing that like went through his face. that was super cool. And like at the beginning, because we only kind of see the coffin thing open, so at that point, I would assume everyone thinks that like, okay, there's a mummy in there, and later on we'll get to see. So like at that point, I was like fine with it. It's just like once it gets to where we're going, and like we spend so much time with the little girl still kind of like bedridden and all that, and it's just like, okay, what's going on? Let's get to it. And then when we do get to it, it's just okay, this is the same shit that like I've seen, like like you guys said, Evil Dead Rise, to me, Exorcist Believer, it's just
Oh,
all the same shit
I'm
in
so
this movie.
disgusted at the fact that you're bringing up Exorcist Believer in this. Exorcist Believer is literally a fucking dumpster fire. This movie is actually likable.
I don't think
And
this
I
movie's
it,
as bad. Like I don't think the movie overall is
well, then
not.
stop comparing it.
But I'm comparing.
You're
I
basically
am
pissing on
comparing.
this movie.
No, I will compare elements that I think like cross over between all this kind of like modern possession movie, like especially like the big theatrical possession movies. They all just seem to have this like sameness to them that to me it's just getting old and boring. And I'm just tired of seeing the same thing over and over, especially when like the story surrounding it is too long, not enough there to make it 2 hours. So it just, to me, it just makes for like an overall mediocre movie, despite a few elements that I think were actually pretty decent or good.
Mm, it's too bad. That's all I can say. I guess where do we go from here? I guess we can just kind of skip up to the ending and basically let you know that eventually they find a videotape. The Egyptian police officer finds a videotape showing the actual procedure for how to move the demon from one vessel to another. The Egyptian police officer kind of memorizes the quote unquote magic words, if you will, that are spoken in the video. And the eventual plan is to move the demon from Katie to her father. Her father basically sacrifices himself, very similar to the end of The Exorcist, where Father Karras sacrifices himself for Reagan. So dad sacrifices himself. The demon then moves into dad. Dad is now possessed by the demon, but we don't spend much time with that because, they basically lock him up right away so that he can't cause any more harm. And then we get our final scene in the movie. And the final scene is going back to the magician. We haven't even really spoken about the magician yet. The magician is basically the woman that started this whole thing. She's the matriarch of the family in the cold open, the family that's in charge of keeping this demon at bay. She obviously, because of her attacking the police officer with a hatchet and getting shot in the chest, she ends up getting arrested and taken to a mental facility where she's basically in a not very secure room. We see a nurse walk into her room, and then the nurse gives her a shot. And then the camera pans up and we see that that nurse is not a nurse. It's actually the matriarch of the Cannon family. So it's our mom. What was her name? Larissa, I think was her name. Yeah, Larissa. So, and then right after she gives the magician the shot, then the Egyptian cop walks in wheeling the dad, who is strapped to a wheelchair, and we can see that he looks very similar to how Katie looked when she was possessed, with the kind of boils on her skin and like eyes not quite lined up correctly and stuff like that. Which definitely looked like a young Jason Voorhees. Like I thought possessed Katie looked a little bit like a young Jason Voorhees, which, hey, that's my favorite horror franchise ever, so I'm here for it. And of course, once the magician realizes that the mom, the possessed dad, and the Egyptian cop are there, the Egyptian cop says, "Well, I think you know what's next." And then the door closes and the movie fades to black. So obviously, they are going to move the demon from the dad back into the matriarch of that family and then do what with her, I don't know, because it's not like they can leave her in a mental facility, because the demon will be able to get out of that easy. So I don't know, obviously it's left to the viewer's imagination what actually happens after the film. But like I said, for me, it's nice to see the catalyst, the person that was the catalyst for all of this horror in the film, to actually get exactly what they deserve. You know, you were taking innocent children. You had done this Lord knows how long. I think they mentioned like 80 something times they had done this. Well, the family, not just this woman, but that family that was in charge of taking care of the demon, had basically done this like 80 plus times. So to actually get the main person who did all this to actually get their comeuppance in a way like that was very satisfying for me, even though we don't get to see it, which is fine because seeing it isn't really going to add anything else to the movie. Just more runtime to an already too long movie. I will agree with most people that say that the runtime is a little long, and the movie could have been a little shorter, but I am also saying that I was not bored for 1 second of this film. I was enthralled and interested for the entirety of the 2 hours and 14 minutes. Didn't roll my eyes once, didn't question any decisions. Well, there might have been a couple of decisions that seemed a little odd, like why did the hospital release Katie in the state that she was in? Like, she's basically catatonic, and they're basically saying, well, we can't do anything more for her here that you can't do at home with the family. And it's like,
she basically she still looked like a corpse pretty much.
Exactly. I mean, she looked awful. You'd think that they would have kept her long enough to at least get the healing process started and, you know, get her teeth fixed and her nails fixed and everything else. Oh, and nails, by the way, did we even talk about that yet? The fucking nail scene, just stellar. Obviously, the camera keeps zooming in slowly to the mom trimming the toenails on Katie. And we all know something's going to happen. I think the majority of us figure, oh, the nail's just going to get ripped out and Katie's not even going to react. And, you know, mom and grandma are going to react. But my friends, not only does the nail come off, but about 2 feet of flesh above the nail. Like, it's almost like a strip of flesh from the big toenail up to the knee gets ripped off her skin. And like I said, the entire theater jumped. Like, that was just something none of us were expecting. And I loved it. I was there for that. So, and like I said, some of the other great kills, grandma getting her intestines after grandma gets thrown out the window, the fucking wolves coming out and just decimating her midsection, pulling out her intestines. Oh, it was great. So yeah, like I said, apparently the movie's not for everyone, and that's fine. It seems like the majority of reviewers and movie fans agree with Mike more than they agree with Don and myself. Obviously, I'm probably going to be as high as anybody can be on this movie. Like I said, I loved every second of it. I was never bored. I never questioned anything other than maybe the doctors. Oh, and I did find it funny when they were dragging her up the stairs in the wheelchair. I'm like, you guys are doing more damage to her by just taking her up the stairs like that. Like that.
Yeah, well, there's like 2 of them. I'm like, just lift the wheelchair up. Like,
just pick up your daughter. That doesn't make any sense. It's your fucking daughter. Pick her up off the wheelchair, carry her up the stairs, and put her into bed. Like, what they did literally was like a Keystone Cops fucking or a Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello comedy skit. Like, it just seemed so out of place. But go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna get because we already went to the ending, so I was gonna ask about it because you just saw it. I saw it Thursday, I think. So, I mean, from the way the rules work, when you put the curse into like a new body, it's temporary because it slowly breaks down the body and you gotta transfer it again. So if we're looking at the end of the movie, are our survivors like, did they work out a plan? Like, well, what do we do when her body rots, or does it just kind of end like, it's gonna be?
Well, that's what I asked.
Problem?
Yeah, that's what I was saying about what happens after the end of this movie. Like, they can't leave her at that facility, because the doctors at the facility are never going to believe that, oh, she's possessed by an ancient Egyptian demon and she has to be kept in a sarcophagus. So I think obviously
you're
they
gonna
have
like someone to agree to be like the new caretaker. Because I mean,
and I would imagine it's that family. I would imagine they probably, because now that Katie is better, she has a personal like connection to this whole thing. I wouldn't be surprised if the family took it upon themselves and said, all right, fuck it, we're going to be the new caretakers of this thing. And maybe over the next few months, years, however long the body lasts, they try to figure out a way that they don't have to kill innocent children to keep this thing at bay. You know, maybe they go back to that ancient Egyptian professor and maybe he helps them out, figure out a new way to keep this thing at bay, you know, a non-living vessel or something like that. Who knows? Like I said, it's left up to the viewer's interpretation. But the way I look at it, I think because of everything that this demon did to this family, they have taken a personal, what do you call it, interest in the keeping this demon at bay. So yeah, that's my interpretation. Like I said, I mean, it's up to the individual viewer, but there's no wrong answers ultimately. If the movie is not going to show us, then let your mind run wild. Who knows? Maybe they do leave her at the facility. Maybe they swap demons and then just leave her there and let the facility deal with her. I don't know. Who knows? Either way, I find that funny too. But yeah, like I said, this is very obviously going to be a very divisive movie. It seems like most people are on the bad side of the fence with this one. I am very solidly on the good side of the fence. Like I said, I can't say enough good things about the movie. Obviously, listeners, if you watch it, let us know. Do you agree with Mike? Do you agree with me? I have a feeling most people are going to agree with Mike, and that's fine. But ultimately, I can't point my finger other than the been there, done that aspect of this film. I don't really have much to complain about. And yes, it would have been nice to actually see the demon in its true form, but at the same time, it probably isn't going to add anything to the movie other than runtime. So it's not that big a deal. Even though that scene where Katie is peeling her skin off, I fully thought that when she was done, the actual demon in its true form was going to be standing there. But no, it was still just Katie, just without any skin on her body. So yeah, there you go. I guess that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and shut up because I'm sure Mike wants to get out of here and watch a movie that he actually enjoys. So back to you, Mike.
Maybe I'll watch the 99 Mummy because I actually do like that. It's just not a horror movie, but it's...
I love the first two Brendan Fraser money movies are great. I love them. I mean, the third one is still watchable. It's just, at least it's watchable because Jet Li's in it. But ultimately,
I don't remember liking the second one.
The second one is the one that has the heaviest CGI, and a lot of people hated The Rock.
No, I'm saying I saw it once, but I have no real memory of it.
Mummy Returns.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, I'm just letting you know, most people hate the second one because it's so CGI filled. I mean, all three movies have CGI in it, but the second one leans on it the most. All the scarabs, the millions of scarabs that come out of the ground, that's all CGI. And obviously, the giant scorpion king was some of the most atrocious CGI of the early 2000s. Yeah, that was awful. I'll agree with that.
I think I've seen enough pictures of it to remember what it is, but I'm saying like I read like the plot to that one. I have very little recollection of it. A lot of the intricacies of what's going on, I have very little recollection of it.
I mean, it's the same basic story of the first one. Just they took a different path.
I remember like just small little scenes. Like I remember the scene where they're opening up in the main story is that they're opening up another sarcophagus under the ground, and through shenanigans there's like a wall breach and they almost get flooded or something. Like that
I remember vaguely familiar. Yeah, I haven't seen the movie in a while either.
Because I'm saying is that I'm trying to remember, like, if I remember stuff like, okay, well that wasn't in the first one, so then maybe it was in the second one. Like that's kind of like how I remember it. I have zero recollection of even seeing the third one. So,
yeah, I think with the third one, most people only saw it once and then just kind of forgot about it. I think a lot of us were excited that Jet Li was in it and that there might be like a little bit of a martial arts aspect to it, but it ended up being very disappointing. Despite the bad CGI in the second one, that's probably still the one I like watching the most of all three of them. The first one is great. The second one's great. The third one, it leaves you wanting more, definitely.
All right. Well, I don't think there's like a major horror movie release this week. Next week we get Hokum and a shark movie in the same week, but that's
Since I enforced Thrash upon you this time, I'll grant you if you want to watch the other one first, but I still do want to cover that at some point.
well, I'm sure I'll be seeing them both next weekend, but
I know, but I'm just saying is that since we, forced Thrash upon you last week, if you want to cover the other one first and then Thrash the week after, I'm fine with that.
okay.
Again, something we'll discuss when the time comes.
Yeah, as far as our next episode, probably I don't know. I mean, it'll be something on VOD. Unless like something pops up in like my Regal app that everyone has access to, but as of now, the only horror movies this week in my theater is the two mystery movies tonight, which might be Hokum and the Shark movie, because that's kind of the pattern. Is like
It's
they,
probably Orphan 3 because I'm going to see Orphan 3 tomorrow. I got passes to go see a screener.
oh,
They're doing theater runs this early? I thought they didn't come out until the end of May.
Right. It's a screener. It's
what's
like a
the
private
runtime?
screener, like one of those you got to have a pass type thing. Blah blah blah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do you know
I
Yeah,
was
the
gonna
yeah.
say I
runtime
thought
on
that
it?
was coming out the end of May.
It is. Yeah, it is the end of May, but
Oh, okay.
I got the opportunity to go see it tomorrow, so I'm going to take it. Tuesday nights are good for me since I don't work most Wednesdays. So yeah, I'm taking advantage and going to see Orphan 3.
Do you know the approximate runtime of it?
I do not. It
Okay.
doesn't say it on the passes. I'm sure if I look it up in the app, it'll probably tell me. But yeah, offhand, I'm not sure.
Both the mystery movies say an hour and 50, but
That seems right. I mean, I'm excited. I like both of the first two Orphan movies, so I'm looking forward to the third one to see what kind of twist they give us since
I
they had
I
big
haven't seen
twists
them
in
in a
both of them.
while, but I remember liking Orphan and then thinking Orphan Kills was like super fun, like just like
Yeah.
absurdity, you know?
Yeah, exactly. With the crazy mom, the mom that was even crazier than Esther. Yeah. I'm just wondering what they're going to do with this one to kind of, that big kind of aha moment that we got in the first two movies. How are they going to repeat that in the third one? Or maybe they're just not at all.
Because I don't even know what the story setup is for the third one, to be
Nope,
honest. I
me
know nothing
neither.
about it.
I don't watch trailers. Everyone knows that. So I have no fucking idea. I haven't even watched the Godzilla teaser. I'm waiting for the full trailer. I know I'm weird. I'm sorry. Though everybody and their mother has already told me about the teaser, so not like I can avoid it anyway.
Yeah. Um. So it's weird. The two mystery movies tonight, they categorized them where you get to pick one is scares and the other is nightmares. So it's not. I mean, obviously, it's not a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So I guess what. I mean, Hokum seems like it could fall under nightmares just because of that style, but like I don't know, it's hard to predict. And scares could be anything.
Mm-hmm. The
I
Scares is probably Orphan, I would imagine, but we'll see. Hopefully, it's scary. Shit, I
yeah,
don't know.
and
I
then
don't know how you make a 13-year-old girl scary in the yet a third movie, but not 13-year-old, potentially 13-year-old. She's obviously 30 something by at this point, but yeah.
yeah. Other than that, the main show is scheduled for Sunday, so hopefully we get that going,
Yeah.
and maybe maybe we'll get like a Cinema Beef makeup episode this Thursday
Yeah, we better.
because I think this is normally it would be the non-schedule Thursday, but because of like
Yeah.
the other postponements, I'm hoping because I just realized next Thursday I might if we do one I might have to miss it because I'm doing Vinegar Syndrome show again, and they always do it on Thursdays. So
Mm.
Thursdays become like this big popular day, I guess. So but that's okay. That's okay. So yeah, we'll be back in a week with something. VOD, there's gonna be a ton of choices by now, but we'll try to go with something that releases this week if possible. If not, something recent. So with that said, thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Fresh Cuts. let's say bye to our listeners.
Later. And I didn't have anything else to plug anyway, so fuck off, Mike.
Yeah. Our show got postponed too. So yeah, nothing from us either.
Nice.
But anyway, kids, don't accept chocolates from strangers through a fence. That's all I got to say.
Peace.